talk about at parties. You want me on that wall. You need me on that wall.
Keep this frequency clear.
And now it's conspiracy. See, they've made that something that should not be even entertained for a minute, that powerful people might get together and have a plan. Doesn't happen. You're a kook. You're a conspiracy buff.
You're watching The Truth is Viral, the only news program on the internet trusted to deliver the truth since 2008. And now, here's your host, Mr. Bobby Powell.
Welcome back to The Truth is Viral. I'm your host, Bob Powell. And on this episode, we have my good friend, Pastor Carl Gallups of the PPSimmons YouTube ministry, interviewing Detective Mike Zullo of the Maricopa County Cold Case Posse, who has some stunning revelations about the birth certificate offered by the White House as proof of Barack Obama's birth in Hawaii. Now, at Sheriff Joe Arpaio's direction, Detective Zullo has been looking into Obama's birth certificate, and as a result, this veteran law enforcement officer states beyond a shadow of a doubt that the document offered on the White House website is indeed a photoshopped fraud. But first, I want to tell you about the exciting lineup of guests that I've got scheduled in the near future. We'll be hearing once again from Patrick Heron, the author of end-time themed books, including The Return of the Antichrist and the New World Order, and the Nephilim and the Pyramids of the Apocalypse. Patrick's just released a new video called Fallen Angels Return, the Hollywood Agenda, and we'll be talking about that. We'll also have a return visit from Dr. Chuck Missler and former CIA analyst Claire Lopez, each of whom will bring their own unique spiritual and secular knowledge to the table. They've got pieces of this Gog-Magog war puzzle, and I'm going to try to put them together for you. Hopefully these last two guests are going to, help us connect the dots between the Middle East, North Korea, Iran, and the prophecies in the 38th and 39th chapters of Ezekiel and Isaiah 17, which declares that overnight Damascus will be destroyed. It will be turned into a smoking heap of ruins that will never again be inhabited. I've got a feeling that Syria, Iran, and North Korea are going to be giving us a lot of grief here in the coming weeks. Things are happening really fast and time is running out. The second coming of Jesus Christ is around the corner, and if you haven't read your Bible in a while, let me tell you that the next few months, up to a year, maybe two, I don't know if it'll last that long, are going to be one interesting news cycle. Right now, though, The Truth is Viral is growing by 150 to 200 new subscribers each and every week. God bless you. I'm extremely grateful for that. We just passed 4,200 subscribers the other day, and I think that's awesome when you consider the tools I have at my disposal. Among my subscribers, we have 3 members of the United States House of Representatives, 2 senators, 2 governors, and the Deputy Foreign Minister of the State of Israel. So I must be doing something right. And we got to keep that momentum going, though. I depend on you to share this show everywhere that you go. All the forums, put it on Twitter, put it on Facebook, Reddit, all that garbage. Also, the show is entirely viewer supported. I would not have been able to cover the Second Amendment demonstration in Lansing had it not been for your generosity, and there's so much left to do. Take a look at this. This is an invitation from the Permanent Mission of the Islamic Republic of Iran for me to attend the Persian New Year celebration held at the United Nations a few weeks ago. Can you imagine, with the heads of state of every Muslim country in the Middle East in one room, can you imagine the questions I could have asked for the cost of a plane ticket and one night in a motel? Holy moly. I'd also like to go check out the Denver International Airport at some point. That place is a hotbed of evil, and many think that that's where a reconstituted U.S. government will emerge from the ashes of this coming war. Queen Elizabeth actually owns property adjacent to the airport. You'd think that the richest woman in the world would want to buy, if she wanted to buy property in Colorado, would choose somewhere close to Aspen and not on the desolate plains of Colorado. One thing I am going to do, though, is go to the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association in Missouri at the end of next month. A sheriff who saw the briefing that I gave to a group of sheriffs and elected officials up here in northern Michigan took care of the several $100 ticket for me to attend, but I still need money for traveling expenses. And that conference is going to be packed with sheriffs and police officers from around the country who've stood up and told the federal government that they need to keep their grubby mitts off the guns of the people that they're sworn to protect. And just a little bit of disclosure, my local sheriff here, Sheriff Steve Kaliszewski, has absolutely nothing to do with this. So, no, it's a different sheriff from a different part of the country. Apparently, he thinks that Northeastern Michigan needs to have a voice, and he's selected me to be that voice. Thank you. And with this latest $100 anonymous donation from a faithful follower of Christ, I now have a little over $300 saved for that trip to Missouri. Of course, I'm the kind of guy that makes every cent count. And so after I attend the sheriff's conference, it's just a hop, skip, and a jump over to the Georgia Guidestones. And I want to take a look at the monument to Agenda 21 for myself. And I want to take you along with me. This is not going to be cheap. I guarantee you that if you help me out, I'll make it worth your while, though, and give you a great show and see just exactly how much truth I can find. Now, I'm going to need about $1,500 total to do all of this, and there's not much time left to raise it. So if you can help sponsor this trip to the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officer Association Conference, the Georgia Guidestones, which is in the heart of the New Madrid Fault Zone, by the way, another story I would like to do, please go to bobpowell.blogspot.com and make a donation today. Anything left over is going to go towards the medical bills that my wife's cancer and my spine have racked up that Medicare doesn't cover. See, as soon as I started making $200 a month on this show from ad revenue, they cut off $600 a month in benefits. That makes a lot of sense. How are people supposed to get back to work? They make it just so difficult. So yeah, we lost $600 a month in benefits, including Medicaid. So it's costing me a net of $400 a month to produce this show, and between my wife and I, we only bring in $1,200 in for our Social Security disability. So until I can start making quite a bit more money by you guys sharing the show and clicking on the ads, we literally depend on your help just to survive. I suppose I could just shut my mouth, sit on my couch, watch Battlestar Galactica and Star Trek and Doctor Who reruns, and give up The Truth is Viral. If I did that, the nanny state would give us food stamps, cash benefits, and cover all of our medical bills. Believe me when I tell you that idea is tempting. But I made a promise to Father, and I made a promise to my little girl, that I'm going to do everything in my power to save lives from the hell on earth that's coming. And I intend to do just that. I am a Marine. I keep my promises. Can I get a new rah? And speaking of keeping my promises, the last time with Rick Ector, I thanked the people that have personally supported me, the show, and our effort to save lives and win souls in these final days before the second coming of Jesus Christ. But since that was a live show and I was literally doing the jobs of 4 people at one time while I was hosting it, I was so harried that I failed to mention one very important person. When I was in Canada last year, stuck in a foreign country with a disabled vehicle, several people came to my aid, but one person especially, his name was Hank, totally saved my bacon, came up with exactly what I needed to get my truck fixed. He said that he did it, and he didn't know how much to send. It just came, and it was literally within $20 of what I needed. It was amazing. He said that he did it in memory of his son, Hank Jr., who died way too soon, just like my daughter Ashley. Hank, if you see this, I want you to know that I still pray for you and yours, and I am so grateful that God sent you to help. You're really one of his angels, brother. Thank you. But tonight I want to thank those who publish or who helped me publish The Truth is Viral. Conservative to Conservative, The Activist Post, and especially Western Center for Journalism and the PPSimmons YouTube ministry. God really blessed me when he brought Carl, Daniel, and Mike into my life. And these news organizations have been great supporters of The Truth is Viral. And I hope that if you aren't already familiar with them, you will check them out. I've already picked up just a new publisher over at Gary Franchi's new network, the Next News Network, who's going to help us spread the truth to more viewers than ever before. And then there are the forums that The Truth is Viral forum partners with in order to share the truth with as many people as possible. The Lunatic Outpost, the Intellectual Oddities Network, Pegasus Research Consortium, and WTFRLY are all great places to check for a steady dose of the news that the mainstream media either ignores or tries to suppress. Now, there's a portal for each one of those forums at my forum at ttiv.forummotion.com. You really need to go check that out. Okay, now we get to the meat of today's show. I know that you have been waiting for this. What you're about to hear is an exclusive interview conducted by my good friend over at PPSimmons, Carl Gallups, on his radio show Freedom Friday with Maricopa County Cold Case Posse lead investigator, Detective Mike Zullo. Detective Zullo has been investigating Obama's birth certificate for almost 2 years. And according to the information that the detective has to present today, that birth certificate is an absolute fraud. Now, what do we know about Barack Obama? Well, we know that the very first thing that he did as president was to seal all of his records and college transcripts, despite his promise to have the most transparent administration in history. We also know that he spent more than $2 million keeping those records under lock and key. He was supposedly the president of the Harvard Law Review, a position to which only the brightest legal writers are elected by their fellow students. Yet we have yet to read one word ever written by Barack Obama during his time as the alleged president of this institution. I have a feeling that if Barack Obama ever actually did write anything when he was in college, that those papers would confirm that he is an avowed communist, just like his parents and grandparents. But we may never know. But where did he come from? That's another thing. There is so much evidence that Obama was born in Kenya, most of it coming from sources close to the president himself, that one would think that that would be a bigger issue, one that the Republican Party as a whole would get behind. Yet anybody that brings it up is labeled as a crackpot. Okay, now we're going to get to that interview between Carl and Detective Zullo in just a minute, but first let's recap some of this evidence. Now, down in Detroit, where I went to college, WRIF is the unrivaled rock and roll radio station in the Motor City. Baby! Now, on the morning show, Mike in the Morning, hosts Mike Clark, Trudy Daniels, and Mark Fellhauer called the Kenyan ambassador to congratulate him on one of his countrymen becoming president of the United States. Let's listen to the relevant part of that interview.
Yeah, you know what you're doing. Well, listen, we want to congratulate you on Barack Obama, our new president, and you must be very proud.
We are.
Yes.
We really are. We're also proud of the U.S. For having made history as well.
Hey, one more quick question. Our President-elect Obama's birthplace over in Kenya, is that going to be a national spot to go visit where he was born?
It's already an attraction.
Okay.
His paternal grandmother is still alive, and
but his birthplace, they'll put up a marker there.
It will depend on the government. It's already well known, as I said.
Yeah.
As WRIF's most famous denizen would say, baby. All right, Arthur P., you demand. That was hot. But it gets better. Between 1991 and 2007, Obama's literary agents, a firm called Acton and Diesel, used this as Barack Obama's official biography. For 16 years, Barack Obama's official bio stated that he was born in Kenya and raised in Indonesia and Hawaii. There is absolutely no way that he was not aware of this. It must have been done with his approval, and having had experience in just this type of thing, providing a bio to publishers, I can tell you that Barack Obama more than likely wrote it himself. But wait, it gets better and closer to home when Michelle Obama admits that her husband was born in Kenya.
What that reminded me of was our trip to Africa 2 years ago, and the level of excitement that we felt in that country, the hope that people saw just in the sheer presence of somebody like Barack Obama, a Kenyan, a black man, a Kenyan, a black man, a Kenyan, a black man, a man of great statesmanship who they believe could change the fate of the world.
And she didn't just do it once, she did it twice.
Surrounding HIV testing, which is still plaguing so many of our communities, which you all know, a lot of that is due to homophobia. Barack has led by example. When we took our trip to Africa and visited his home country in Kenya, his home country in Kenya, his home country in Kenya, Kenya, we took a public HIV test for the very point of showing folks in Kenya that there is nothing to be embarrassed about in getting tested. And we did it as a couple.
Obama's grandmother, Sarah Odinga Obama, says to this day that he was not only born in Kenya, but that she was present at his birth. His half-brother and half-sister say the same thing, according to a lawsuit filed by attorney Philip Berg. The Obama administration has released two versions of what it claims to be the president's birth record. The latest allegedly a scan taken of the so-called long-form birth certificate. Now, I downloaded this image from the White House website myself, and when I opened it up into Photoshop, the image consisted of 4 distinct layers. When Detective Mike Zullo starts talking about the birth certificate in this interview, make sure that you watch the screen, and I will show you each of those 4 layers. There is no doubt in my mind that this document is a forgery. But right now, let's get to the good stuff. We're about to hear Carl interview Detective Zullo about the latest findings of the Maricopa County Cold Case Posse on the Obama investigation into his birth certificate. Carl had invited me to call in the week before to ask Detective Zullo a few questions, but technical difficulties abounded that day, as they have in everything surrounding this. It's insane. I had originally recorded the intro to this live, but and you can watch it, and it looks fine, but when I try to edit it, it just goes wonky, and I gave up, so I figured I'd just redo the intro. So anyway, as I said, technical difficulties were abounding that day, and since the VIP line was also down, I had to call in just like everybody else that was listening to the show. I don't think I've hit redial that many times in a row since a radio station in Fort Lauderdale was giving away free KISS tickets in 1976. But I did get through, and I was able to ask Detective Zullo just one question. I've invited him onto The Truth is Viral one day soon to expand on that conversation, but for now we'll just have to settle for that one question. However, Carl did graciously grant me permission to use his entire interview with Detective Zullo for my show, and throughout I've added relevant graphics and supporting video that you've come to expect from The Truth is Viral. Now, remember to subscribe to The Truth is Viral here on YouTube, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and if you feel the cause is worthy, please consider donating to it at bobpowell.blogspot.com. We're keeping aside what we can to pay the medical bills for my wife's cancer treatment that Medicare is not covering, but most of the donations are going right back into the show, and that's the only way I'm going to be able to get to that Constitutional Sheriff's Conference, so I'm depending on you. Let's go right to the Gulf Coast of Florida to my good friend and fellow Christian soldier, Pastor Carl Gallups, as he interviews Detective Mike Zullo. Get ready for some stunning revelations.
Now, back to your turn on 1330 WEBY, Northwest Florida's talk radio. The phone lines are open, so call in and join the conversation at 623-1330.
And now, the Commander-in-Chief is back. Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups, the Oval Office of Gulf Coast Talk Radio.
All right, welcome back, Gulf Coast. Welcome back, America. Welcome back, world. And you are listening to Freedom Friday, as my good friend just said. And then, of course, Mallory Bardwell is your world-famous producer. And as I have promised, Mike Zullo, the lead investigator with the Sheriff Arpaio investigation, is here with us today by telephone. And Mike, you there?
Yeah, Carl, how are
okay,
you
doing fantastic. And Mike has graciously agreed to give us an hour and a half of his time. So for the rest of this show, and this is a special edition of Freedom Friday, it will be Mike Zullo and myself, and we'll be taking your phone calls. Now, I say we, of course, because I've been on this for a long time, and I can answer a lot of questions, but I would much rather you hear from Mike Zullo as much as possible. So here's what I want to tell you folks. About 2 hours before the show, the phone started ringing here in the studio literally nonstop, and that's without any exaggeration at all. When I walked in about an hour before, Mallory was just going crazy. All the lines ringing, people, they're mixed up on time zones, wanting to make sure and how and when and where. Plus, people are trying all over the world to get through on our live stream server. So let me tell you, folks, if you click on the live stream, and you can get there at 1330weby.com or carlgallups.com, listen live link. If you click on it and you get an error page or a blank page, or it just is not working, it's because of one of two reasons. It's either an absolute slam dunk user overload situation, which could be, and I mean, we've upgraded and we've got huge bandwidth, but I mean, this is a very popular show, and with Mike Zullo on today, it's even more popular, so it could be that it's just slammed that way. Plus, we have had cyber attacks before, and we've been threatened with them. Mike and I are aware of that might happen today. So for those of you that are able to listen, let me tell you this so that you can jump on Facebook and tweet and let people know, on Twitter, and let people know the different options they have. First of all, of course, if they can listen by radio, we cover 4 states on the Gulf Coast, so if you're in the Gulf Coast area, you can hear us. But otherwise, if you can't get on the live stream, if you'll jump on Facebook and Twitter and let people know, if they will go to tuneinradio.com, and or download the app, TuneIn Radio app, on their smartphone. We do know that is up. Various folks are listening and telling us that they're listening on their smartphones live right now. And so I think you can listen on the internet that way as well. So those are options. Now, if that doesn't work, then do not fret, because tomorrow you'll be able to go to carlgallups.com, click on the podcast link, and download the whole show or any portions thereof. Listen to whatever you want, anytime you want. Plus, I know Mike Shoesmith over at PPSimmons is going to be making video/audios of this entire program and pasting and posting all over the internet on PPSimmons YouTube, the 4 or 5 PPSimmons Facebook properties, the PPSimmons blogspot, which is syndicated to 20 different news sites, etc. So we'll probably have them available up at carlgallups.com as well. So if folks are missing the show live right now, I'm so sorry. It's just that popular of a show. Don't worry, because you'll be able to hear it all tomorrow. Now, for those of you that are calling in, here are the ground rules. We got an hour and a half, so we've got several lines and they roll over. If you call and the lines are busy, just my advice is to put it in your what's it called, speed dial, your line memory. Put it in speed dial, and whenever you hear somebody ask a question and or hang up, then you just punch it and try to get in right behind them. If you get in the queue, be patient and hang on, because Mike's going to be answering questions and he's going to answer them thoroughly, and plus we'll have a few commercial breaks. So just because you're in the queue doesn't mean you're going to be up in 5 seconds. It might be 5 minutes before you're up, but if you'll hang on and be patient, we'll get you live on the air. Now, the only rule that I have is that no personal attacks. I mean, I've got my finger on the button here, the off button. If somebody calls up and just starts calling names and trashing Mike or me, I'm just going to cut you off and we're going to move on. But everyone else, it doesn't matter. I mean, you can disagree with this whole thing that Mike is doing and Arpaio is doing and that I'm doing. And you call and tell us why, though. Ask questions. I mean, tell us why. Give us evidence. You can agree, you can disagree. There might be things you're confused about, things you would like more information on, things that you'd like cleared up, questions you have. That's why Mike Zullo's here. He has nothing to hide. I have nothing to hide. We can tell you who does have something to hide, and we're going to tell you the evidence that we've come upon lately and things that may be getting ready to happen very soon. We'll tell you all of that. There are going to be revelations throughout this show. There's going to be some surprising information, so you don't want to miss any of it. All right, I've said all that. Now, Mike Zullo, let me just ask you, let's go ahead and do this right up front. We're going to pretend like that a bunch of our listeners really know very little about all of this. And so I'm just going to ask you, tell people who you are. Tell them about your background. Tell them about your qualifications, how you got involved in this, and what your position is. I mean, what do you do in this? Who are you? Tell folks.
Carl, I'm a former law enforcement officer from New Jersey. I was a detective in New Jersey. I was a trained investigator. I was trained in New Jersey in fingerprint identification, narcotics investigation, homicide investigation, and as a matter of fact, took one of the very first domestic violence investigation courses that were offered when that was, becoming law. After my stint with New Jersey, I became a licensed investigator in the state of New Jersey. In 2005, I believe it was, I joined the sheriff's posse after I moved to Arizona. And subsequently, in 2007, I was asked by Sheriff Arpaio if I would head up a newly formed Cold Case Posse that he was starting. And for those that you don't know, Posse is a volunteer organization. Mm-hmm. You take people with certain skill sets, and the sheriff's office supplements their own forces with these folks. As a result of accepting the sheriff's offer, I received AZ post-certified training again in homicide investigation in Arizona, cold case investigation in Arizona, MCSO trained in investigative techniques, including surveillance and counter-surveillance, and high-risk criminal apprehension training. I am currently the commander of the Cold Case Posse going on 7 years, and I'm Sheriff Arpaio's chief investigator on this eligibility issue.
Okay, well, that's wonderful. So you're a cop.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, you are. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. I know people have asked me, and I've been real close on nailing that, but that's great. I even learned a few things about you there. That's awesome, Mike. I appreciate that. Let me say to our callers, listen, we're going to go straight to the lines because the lines have been jammed for the last 2 hours, but let me just say to our callers now, we're going to start taking these calls, and Mike's going to start answering these questions, but we're going to just ask you to do this. Limit the call to one question, okay? Don't come on and pontificate. Don't come on and for 30 minutes think you're going to give us your comments or your observations. That would be unfair to the rest of our listeners. Just come on, ask your question, state your case, and then get off the line, let Mike answer it, and let somebody else call in, all right? Let's do it that way. All right, we've got a caller named Mike who wants to talk to the investigator named Mike, and Mike, you want to talk to Mike about what's going on in Hawaii. Welcome to Freedom Friday.
Yes, thank you, Carl, and thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
And thank both of you for going to CPAC last week.
Oh, God bless you.
Thank you.
Mike, I wanted to ask you, when the White House issued that phony forged birth certificate on the White House website, there was a letter that was also, along with that, from Obama's attorneys and Obama, and he requested to the state of Hawaii a copy of his birth certificate. And the governor responded with a letter that we don't normally do this, but in your case, we'll release a copy of your birth certificate. Are you investigating any of the aspects of those letters?
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, Mike, we are. As a matter of fact, I could add a little clarity to that. The letters that were issued were in response to Hawaii's standing practice, I believe back in the year 2000. They made a decision to no longer issue long-form birth certificates. And this was not done by any legislative action. This was done by policy. And the administration requested a long form on behalf of the president. Now, they're making a big deal out of this. If you look at Hawaii statutes, it is permissible to issue a long-form birth certificate. All this really was nothing more than a change in policy or a deviation from policy.
Right.
There was no big, extensive legal analysis that really had to be done. As a matter of fact, I believe within issuing the letter, he got a long-form birth certificate purportedly released within 3 days.
Yeah.
I mean, so this notion that this was an impossibility is really being hyped. It's really not.
Right.
It's nothing more than a request. And I also understand that anyone can make the request. It's up to the director of the Department of Health to honor it or not.
Right. And certainly the man who's sitting in the White House as POTUS could have his attorney's request, and certainly that request would be honored.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, Mike, listen, let's go back to the phone lines, and they're still jammed. Folks, when you hear people ask a question and hang up, that's your chance to hit that redial. Let's go to John. John, welcome to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups. You want to ask Lieutenant Zullo something about the grand jury. John? John, are you there? Okay. See, that's what happens, folks, when you're not patient. Listen, folks, let me just say this. If you're not willing to be patient, please don't call and tie up the lines, okay? But in the meantime, we've got some lines open, and we've got more people on the line, and Mallory's still doing some screening. So, Mike, let me just ask you, when you were asked by Sheriff Arpaio to come on as the lead investigator for this case, the specific thing you were asked was to take a look at that long-form birth certificate that was finally released by the White House, and Obama stated that this is it, it's on the website, that's my birth certificate. He did that in a nationally televised press conference, and then, of course, later on, people began looking at it, and it looked like it was forged or fraudulent, and so Sheriff Arpaio, tell the folks how you got involved. Why did Arpaio get involved, and why did you get involved in that?
Sheriff Arpaio was actually put into a corner on this way by about some folks from a surprise Tea Party here in Arizona, where they commissioned 250 folks to sign petitions requesting that the sheriff look into the birth certificate. They felt that this birth certificate had some problems with it, and they were in fear that their voting rights were going to be violated.
Mm-hmm.
Arpaio looked at this, didn't really know anything about the matter, took it under advisement, and as fate would have it, one morning I get a call to come in and see the sheriff. I go in and see him, and he explains this to me. And, Sheriff Arpaio looked me right dead in the eye, and he goes, Mike, I don't really think there's anything here, but if we can clear the president, let's clear the president and move on. The country needs to move on from this.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we took it.
Okay.
And that's how we got here.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. And it's my understanding that you even had folks on the Cold Case Posse at first that were, big Obama supporters and kind of snickered a little bit and said, well, this will be easy to deal with. Surely the man in the White House doesn't have a fraudulent birth certificate up there. We ought to be able to handle this pretty quickly. I know I'm paraphrasing, but didn't something like that happen?
Yeah, we never picked anybody to work on this in the very beginning. Based on political affiliation or likes or dislikes.
Right.
As it unfolded, we found out where some of these people stood. And I myself, I was never following this. I mean, I heard about it.
Right.
I was not a political junkie. I never followed politics. I didn't think this thing was false either, to be candid with you. It was about 72 hours later that I had to call the sheriff and tell him I think we have a problem.
Right.
I think we've got a problem. I think that's a tragic understatement, Detective Zullo. We'll be back to with my question to Detective Zullo in just a minute. Welcome back to The Truth is Viral. I'm your host, Bob Powell, and in this segment, a little further into the segment, but no more breaks until then, we'll see what I had to ask Detective Zullo. Let's get right back to the interview.
Now, back to your turn on 1330 WEBY, Northwest Florida's talk radio. The phone lines are open, so call in and join the conversation at 623-1330.
Welcome back to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups. Sit down, buckle up, and hang on.
All right, folks, welcome back to Freedom Friday. Carl Gallups, Lieutenant Mike Zullo with us, lead investigator Sheriff Arpaio. You want to try to answer Shirley's question there, Mike, and then we're up against another hard break, but we got an hour after that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a little difficult to answer that because obviously, no matter what the consensus is, whether we all agree that he's illegitimate or not, the fact is he's a sitting United States president, and that's who they have to work with. I can't speak really to that. But what I can tell you is I am very concerned that the way that this has been portrayed to the American people about citizenship, about coming through solely through the mother, I believe you can go back into history and you could find out where they may have that backwards.
Yeah.
And that the citizenship is conferred through the father. And if that is the case, if it's determined later on that that is the case, there is a problem here, because even by omission, the man's purported father was not a United States citizen.
That's right. That's right. Even if he is the one, you're right. And you know, something you and I have been emphasizing, even though what you said is true, and you need to say that, is that this case that you have before you, this criminal legal case, is not really a birther issue, although that may prove to be a big deal in this. But the issue you have is a fraudulent, forged, fabricated document, a crime, a federal felonious crime has been committed in or and around the White House, and that's what you're proffering to people who have some standing to get something done about it, right?
Well, that's correct. And go one step further. I mean, let's be real about this, Carl. We're looking at probably the greatest fraud ever perpetrated against the American people in history.
Yeah.
If not the history, well, I can't say the history of the world because there was worse things done, but this is monumental for this country.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was going to say it is, and it may be in the history of the world as far as a fraud goes, in that we are the number one superpower of the world, the number one superpower in world history. There's never been one that has had this much power and influence and wealth, and for it to be taken perhaps by complete fraud would have to be one of the greatest frauds in world history.
Could very well be.
Yeah.
And what else it does, if I could just real quick, what else it does, it attacks us at our very core foundational principles, that we're a nation of law, not a nation of men. And no one's above the law. It doesn't matter who you are.
Right.
Anybody possessing this document, trying to use this document for gain, would be arrested and prosecuted.
Right. And
as clear cut as that.
Yeah, at a very simple level, if I went and fabricated a birth certificate, put it in multiple layers, and just made it say what I wanted it to say to represent me, Carl Gallups, and if I took that birth certificate and tried to gain employment with it where somebody would pay me, or tried to gain a service that was valuable to me, or tried to represent myself as somebody I wasn't so that I could advance my cause, all of those would be considered crimes. They would be considered felonies. More than likely, I'd wind up in prison. Am I right?
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
So aren't we dealing with the very same thing, except at a much larger scale?
I don't know if there's ever been something as large as this under the fraud statute, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about the most powerful man in the world.
I know. And the bottom line is, as of right now, you're holding in your possession massive files of a almost 2-year criminal investigation proving that the documents are fraudulent. So thus far, all we know is the man in the White House, with the documents he's provided thus far, he is not legally able to be there. He's committed fraud against the American people, right?
That's a little bit of a stretch, Carl, because I don't know if I could say that. What I could tell you is that the document that he presented is not a representation of any official,
there you go,
in any official capacity of where this man was born.
There you go. That's the better way of saying it. We'll clear all that up when we come back. Folks, we've got to take a time out. It'll be about 3 or 4 minutes. We'll be back for an hour with Mike Zullo taking your calls. Hang on. We got a lot of show left. We'll be right back.
$1330 WEBY, Northwest Florida's Talk Radio. This is Your Turn, a live call-in show featuring spirited discussion and debate about issues that matter to the community. Stay with us to hear what Northwest Florida thinks. Better yet, call in at 623-1330 and tell us what you think. It's Your Turn here on 1330 WEBY, Northwest Florida's Talk Radio. Now, here's the host of Your Turn.
Welcome to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups. You are in the Oval Office, the White House, of Gulf Coast Talk Radio, broadcasting to parts of 4 states along the Gulf Coast and broadcasting to the nation and the world by live stream on the internet. Carl is not ashamed of the Word of God, the Constitution, or the Declaration of Independence. He does not care about political correctness, nor does he depend upon a teleprompter or popularity polls. Carl stands for truth, reason, and common sense. Carl firmly believes that America is God's gift to the world. If any of that interests you, you are at the right place. Freedom Friday on 1330 WEBY. Now, here's Carl Gallups.
All right, welcome back, America. Welcome back, world. Welcome back, Gulf Coast. You are listening to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups, Mallory Bardwell, your world-famous producer, and we are at the top of the second hour, and our guest this afternoon in this very special edition is Mike Zullo, the lead investigator, commander of the Cold Case Posse, Sheriff Arpaio, out of Maricopa County, Arizona, examining the fraudulent, forged, fabricated document, the only identifying document that the White House has proffered on who this man in the White House is, who this commander-in-chief is. The only identifying document they've brought forth is a 100% criminal investigation, legally proven fabrication. Am I right, Mike Zullo?
I would agree with you 100%.
Okay, now, let me say this, and then we're going to go to our callers. And then, Mike, of course, I want you to comment on it. Back in the first press conference that Sheriff Arpaio held, and you were there, of course, as the commander of that investigation. Arpaio said it, then you said it, you guys said it. I don't know who said it when, first, whatever, but two of you have said this over and over. For the naysayers, for even the Obama bot, those that are just so in love with Obama that they just think that Mike Zullo's a liar, Carl Gallups is a liar, and everybody else is a liar. Let me just say this. Arpaio said, I remember when he said it, he sounded like a grandfather. He was so calm and so courteous, and he said, he was just so nice. I remember he said, look, he said, I have no desire to destroy this president in any way. He said, this is a simple matter. It's a simple matter. He said, the document we have is a false document. It's no good. So all we ask is for the president to bring us forth the original document, the microfilm document, so we can examine it, and we'll clear him. We will clear him, and we will shout it to the world. Mike, that's all you guys have ever wanted is the truth. Am I right? But in the meantime, instead of bringing forth a real document, all you've gotten is further cover-up, further name-calling, crashing websites, obfuscation. I mean, what's up with that? Am I right?
You're 100% right. I mean, the sheriff said it in the very beginning. Just show us the microfilm, and we can make this all go away. The situation that unfolded was something I was never expecting. I've never been part of a disinformation campaign, and I've been educated now on disinformation and disinformation techniques. And one of the paramount things is what happened with the media blackout. You know, if they don't report on it, it didn't happen.
Right.
They keep people in the dark. You know, they use tactics as ridicule. They try to dominate discussions on message boards. They make outrageous comments. They make false accusations. They do a whole host of things trying to sway people from the truth, trying to stop people from looking at that chain of evidence.
Right.
And it's something that I never had this experience with. You know, they'll even go as far as setting up straw men to create like an element of an argument or the opponent's argument that they could easily debunk, and they try to take that to chip away at the truth.
Right.
And their methodology is, if we could quote debunk, and that word has been thrown around all over the place.
Right.
People don't know what it really means. If they can debunk one item, something you say, they nullify the whole investigation.
Right.
Well, unfortunately for them, it doesn't work like that.
No, not in a criminal investigation, right?
No, it doesn't work like that. But what's going on now and what's being waged against the American people is techniques being used that are called psyops. And they're psychological operations, and they're used to keep you in the dark. I mean, if you are just a common individual, you don't have to be a law enforcement officer, you don't have to be a professor. If I brought you in and I showed you in layman's terms this document, there is only one conclusion you can come to.
Right.
that this thing was put together piece by piece.
Right.
And they are doing everything they can to nullify it. They'll even go as far as creating their own expert environment.
Right.
Trying to give themselves authority with so-called experts that aren't experts at all.
Right. In fact, they're irrelevant.
They are irrelevant. They're completely irrelevant. The best way you deal with them is to use the same technique that they're using on the American people. Don't talk to them.
Yeah, just ignore them. And that's what
and that's what the White House has really done on this issue.
Right.
They never really addressed this issue. The only time they really addressed this issue is when they came up with the phony document.
Right. Yeah, well, and that's what you and I have been doing, just ignoring them because they are irrelevant. Well, listen, Mike, let's go back to the phone lines. Now, folks, hang on. We've got about 45 minutes of program left, and Mike and I, in just a little bit, we're going to be making some announcements that you've not heard, bringing forth as much information as we can, a couple of surprises, and some updates on what's going on, what may happen very soon, some new information that's come to light on this case. And there is some potentially very, very exciting progress being made. We'll tell you about that in a little bit, so you hang on and listen. But in the meantime, let's be courteous and go to the callers that have been waiting so long. Michael, welcome to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups, and you're on with Mike Zullo. So, Michael, ask your question of Mike.
Good evening, Pastor Gallups and Lieutenant Zullo. God bless you. I pray for you. Thank you for giving me the time to come on air here and for all you've done. In Illinois and in other states, there were ballot objections. And in Illinois, it was specifically placed in on the record by the Illinois Board of Elections. There's a document ruling on January 27th of 2012 that says the birth certificate attached, referring to Mr. Obama's birth certificate attached as Exhibit A, clearly established the candidate's eligibility for office as a natural-born citizen on January 27th. And then on February 2nd, in their final decision, the Board of Elections stated that the copy of the candidate's birth certificate establishes the candidate's eligibility for office of the President of the United States as a natural-born citizen, as is required by Article 2, Section 1 of the United States Constitution. With that being said, and knowing that you have proven that this is nothing more than a document, what can be done about this? Can criminal complaints be filed with the DA or the AG? That's my question.
Thank you, Michael. God bless you.
Mike, here's the short answer to that. Could criminal complaints be filed? I guess someone could take the document. The document was offered. We have the evidence that, to the contrary, that the document offered was not authentic. Therefore, no evidence was offered to satisfy the requirement or what the court was asking for. But the long and short of it is, to get a prosecutor or an attorney general, you need someone who's willing to take this on. And the problem that we've been running into is the same problem that I just described earlier with this whole disinformation campaign. Ridicule is the number one weapon that keeps people away. It's very difficult to defend yourself against being ridiculed. And you have to find someone who's brave enough to take this on. And that's what we're trying to do. I don't want to give away your thunder, Carl.
Yeah.
But that's what we're trying to do moving forward, and we'll save that for the rest of the show.
Well, absolutely, because we think we have found a handful of people who are brave enough, and we'll talk about that and give away. We'll blow this thunder here in just a few moments. But right now, and thanks, Mike. Right now, let's go back to the phone lines. We're going to take this call, then we're going to take a break, and then we'll take more calls. So we've got a few phone lines open, but they fill up quickly. So you're going to want to call 850-623-1330. 850-623-1330. Sherry, welcome to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups. You're on with Mike Zullo. Ask your question, Sherry. You want to ask about the investigation?
Thank you, Carl. I'm a Canadian grandmother, a non-politically correct Christian, and I've followed this issue for 4 to 5 years now. I've read tens of thousands of pages, scores of videos, and I concluded long ago that Obama was never born in Hawaii. But having said that, there's been many investigations going on, one of them being the Orly Tates investigation, being the most prominent. Working on the Obama birth certificate and fraudulent Social Security number. I'm wondering why you haven't been combining your efforts on this. As she, managed to get an interview with SCOTUS on it, and in fact, certain people, key people there, were not even given the evidence she produced, and she subpoenaed them on it. So, How can this be married together, or can it be?
Thank you. That's a brilliant question, Sherry. I know that Mike has been asked that a lot, and I know he's anxious to answer it. So, Mike, you want to answer a question?
Yeah, Sherry, to address your question, the problem that we have here is the majority of Orly Tates' work has been done in the civil arena. We are in the criminal arena. We're in a different court, a different set of standards, different burdens of proof.
Right.
And our burdens are a lot higher. If you go back to the O.J. Simpson trial, he was found innocent in criminal court, but he was convicted in civil court. Lower standard of evidence. We are compelled to have a higher standard of evidence. In other words, we have to go to make an arrest, probable cause, saying we believe a crime has been committed because X, 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 and X. But when it gets adjudicated, it has to be beyond a reasonable doubt.
Right.
So we have a higher standard of evidence. We cannot take our criminal evidence and marry it into a civil trial.
Right.
You just can't do it.
Yeah, and I'm going to say I appreciate what Orly's doing, and I know you do too, Mike, because you've told me that on many occasions. And we applaud her. I mean, we and we're praying for her, and we want her to succeed. But as Mike just said, for fear of being a little redundant, he's working at it from a strictly criminal angle, and so have I actually. And we're trying to advance the criminal case, and we're trying to get VIPs involved in helping us to advance this, and we believe that's getting ready to happen. And again, I keep teasing you with that, and I'm going to let Mike tell you more about that later. But did I speak accurately there, Mike?
You did. If I could just go, one step further.
Sure.
Going into or advancing a criminal case, I want people to understand from the position of Sheriff Arpaio, the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, and myself, we are dealing with a fraudulent document. We are not here, nor have I been commissioned to address natural-born citizen or anything else.
Right.
We know we have a document. Now, once that document, which I do believe could never be brought into a courtroom and viewed as an authentic document, it will never survive the scrutiny of a judicial process.
Right.
It could never be utilized in any courtroom in its present form. That being said, once that document has been declared as such, then the gates are going to be open for all those other questions.
Right, yeah.
But this document has to be brought on trial. That's what has to happen.
Right, because the two main questions, once the document is brought on trial, and the trial determines that the document is in fact fraudulent, then the two next questions are, number one, who produced it, because they've committed a horrendous crime against the American public, and number two, why did they produce it? Does the man not have a valid birth certificate? And there's where we get to the possible birther issue. But right now, you're dealing with the criminal case of a fabricated document of the man sitting in the commander-in-chief's chair, correct?
That's correct. That's all we are looking at.
Okay, fantastic. Folks, let's do this. We're going to take a quick time out. We're going to come back. We've got your phone calls. The phone lines keep getting jammed. We're proud of that. Keep calling 850-623-1330. We'll get you on with Mike Zullo. Listen, we've got 40 more minutes of program, so just sit back, relax, and all this is going to be up on the internet tomorrow in podcast and all over the internet in video format, so you're not going to miss anything. We're glad that you're with us today. We'll be right back.
Now, back to your turn on 1330 WEBY, Northwest Florida's talk radio. The phone lines are open, so call in and join the conversation at 623-1330.
If Carl doesn't talk about it, it probably won't be talked about. Aren't you glad that he is on the air and back in the Oval Office of Gulf Coast Talk Radio? Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups, 1330 WEBY.
All right, welcome back, Gulf Coast. Welcome back, America. And welcome back, Mike Zullo. Thank you for taking an hour and a half of your time today, Mike. And the phone lines are still jammed, and I'm getting texts. And, Mike, I want to deal with this text. I got a text from a friend of mine who is a judge, and I've got three friends in the local area that are judges that I communicate with pretty regularly. And this judge is listening, and he wants to know, can you very quickly speak to the paper trail of the posted PDF file on the White House site? Do we have any idea of where that PDF came from? Is there any computer digital trail?
What we know is the computerized image was sitting in a Mac computer. We know it was in a program called Preview 20 minutes before it was uploaded to the White House server. The problem that we run into is Preview has a capability of erasing what's called the metadata, or the computerized language that the previous program was used to do whatever it needed to do. It wipes that clean. However, there were remnants of data there, and we do believe that two programs were used, Illustrator and I believe it was Paint Shop may have been used on the program.
Okay.
So we know that the program was compiled through a variety of different programs. Maybe it was Photoshop. I think Photoshop was the program, the first one used. It was compiled through a variety of different programs, pieced together for different reasons through those programs, which I don't want to get into.
Right.
But ultimately, it was sitting 20 minutes before in a Mac computer in Preview. We know that for sure.
Okay. Do we, and you may not be able to answer this, I'm not sure, but do we know approximate location of that computer? Do we know maybe what state or what office, or what do we know about that?
We don't know. We don't know we don't know where the computer was. We don't know where the location of the upload took place. All we know is it was uploaded to a secure server, a government server, the White House server.
Okay. All right.
So common logic would bring you back to who pressed the upload button, and how did that guy get the program, and how did the guy before him get the program, and you could just work this thing backwards. Eventually, you would come to the answers.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, listen, we got about 6 or 7 minutes on this side of the next break, and we've got the phone lines jammed, and people have some really good questions. So let me go to the next caller. The next caller up, his name is Carl. You know, Mike, what about all these people named Carl and Michael today?
I think it's a conspiracy.
It's a conspiracy. It's got to be. But Carl, welcome to Freedom Friday. You want to talk about the media ignoring this topic, and I know that Mike Zullo wants to...
Mike, I've known this guy was a fraud since 2007, thanks to Phil Berg, the attorney from Pennsylvania, Democrat, by the way. So my question to you is, we saw what happened to Lou Dobbs when he started talking about this issue. So maybe that's the answer. But why are the radio rhinos, is what I call them, like Sean Hannity, Rush Limbaugh, especially Bill O'Reilly, Mark Levin, and others, why are they so afraid of this?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Carl. Mike, you and I have talked about this for hours on end. I wish that I could answer it, but you're the one they want to hear, so go for it.
Well, I think Carl got it right on the very first sentence that he said that there's fear, there's threats.
Yep.
We know that we received information early on that certain VIPs of radio were threatened by the administration and that they wanted this dropped. We do know that the minute the birth certificate was put out on the White House website, within 24 hours, this national topic had stopped.
Yeah.
We do know that the threats were so severe that one individual fled the country for fear of her and her child. So we know that there were threats. The other side of that question, I'm not in the mind of these people, but if we take the threat equation out, you really have to start to ask yourself, why are these people not addressing this? Because if they really believe that this is a non-issue, I would have to take pause at everything they tell me from that point forward.
Yeah. And I've also said to the media, to us, and was going to have a meeting with us and was going to examine the evidence further, made promises to us. We've got the email chains. We've got it in writing. We've got witnesses and phone conversations to his offices. That person backed out on us, and backing out is not a problem, because they certainly have the freedom to do that, but they called me and said, we don't remember making these promises to you. I mean, that's how freaky this stuff gets, folks. And I've got the email chain. I reminded them of that. I think they forgot about it because you could hear them gulp when I said it. But I'm going to be exposing that over the next couple of Fridays. I'll read the emails to you and tell you who it was, just like we told you about Colonel West. Mike, you ready to take some more calls?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, good. Bob, welcome to Freedom Friday. You want to talk about, is there cause to charge a felony? I think I read that correctly. Ask your question to Mike Zullo.
All right, thank you, Carl. This is Bob Powell from The Truth is Viral. Detective Zullo, I wanted to thank you and Sheriff Arpaio for all the awesome work you've done. As a matter of fact, I used you guys in my episode that I entitled "The New Declaration of Independence: Impeach Obama Now," as the epitome of manly firmness opposing Obama. So, thank you on behalf of the people of the United States of America. Now, here's my question. Before I went in the Marine Corps, I spent a year taking criminal justice. And while I was engrossed in my studies, I learned that when there's a felony committed, even if it's committed outside of the presence of a law enforcement officer, that person can be arrested. Now, do you have probable cause to believe that Barack Obama may have committed a felony?
All right, thank you for that call, Bob. You know, a lot of people ask that. Mike?
Probable cause that Barack Obama committed a felony. I guess that's going to be determined on what level. If you're asking me, do we have probable cause that Barack Obama sat down at a computer and put together a phony birth certificate? The answer is no.
Right.
I don't believe the man did that,
right,
to be candid with you.
Could he be involved in a conspiracy?
There are some legal hurdles as to putting up a document that's fraudulently created, using a document that's fraudulently created to get a benefit.
Right.
In that case, I think you probably could go there. But again, those are legal theories and legal arguments that would have to ensue. But if it were you or I taking our birth certificate, trying to use it to get on a ballot in an upcoming election, and we offered up a phony document, and we got that position because people felt comfortable that the question had been answered by what we offered, and we were receiving compensation as a result of that electoral turnout, I think we would be indicted immediately.
Yeah, be in big trouble.
Big trouble is an understatement, Carl. I guarantee you that any normal person who committed the same crimes as Barack Obama, from fraud to murder to dereliction of duty and even treason, would be locked up underneath Leavenworth if they didn't get the death penalty. But for some reason, despite all of the evidence, Barack Obama has been protected from any sanctions whatsoever. And the same goes for his minions, like Attorney General Eric Holder, who has been in contempt of Congress over Fast and Furious for how long now? 10 months? If any one of us was held in contempt of Congress, we'd also be held in jail until we agreed to cooperate. But it seems like everybody in the Obama administration gets a pass. Apparently, they are above the law. Okay, now this is the end of part one, but don't go away yet. Remember to share this video on Facebook, on Twitter, start up a conversation with it at your favorite forum, and subscribe to The Truth is Viral on Facebook and Twitter. And if you're financially able, help me get to that Constitutional Sheriff's and Peace Officers Conference down in Missouri. I need your help. It's going to cost about $1,500. Now, for the rest of Carl's interview with Detective Mike Zullo, just click on this link right here and you are good to go. Thank you for watching The Truth is Viral. My name is Bob Powell, and as always, God bless. Semper Fi. Hoorah.
Thank you for watching The Truth is Viral with your host, Bobby Powell. Make sure to follow The Apocalypse on Twitter at The Truth is Viral. Like The Truth is Viral on Facebook, and if you can, please remember to donate to the cause via PayPal at www.bobpowell.blogspot.com.